Darren, thank you very much for joining us at your Property Financial today. Darren, you're working obviously over at Mansell & Co, Chartered Accountants, and we really appreciate your time in joining us today. Thank you for coming to our YouTube channel.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. Really appreciate your time. We know how busy you are. We're just going to go through some kind of frequently asked questions and a few things that we always get asked. I know our clients always want to know the answers to, and quite often I say, well, you need to speak to an accountant, and there's no one better than Darren to try and get those answers. I think we should say, obviously, before we go any further, this is kind of general conversation today. It's not constituting tax advice or mortgage advice. Everyone's got to reach out to either a broker for their mortgage advice or their accountant for individual tax advice, because your circumstance can be complex, and it's obviously on your individual situation. But yeah, really looking forward to going through some questions with you today and talking through that further.
Yeah, likewise.
So Darren, some of the questions that I get asked quite often is, how much do my earnings need to be before I need to start filing a tax return? And is there a certain level where that's triggered with HMRC?
Yes, so there's varying levels of income and also circumstances. So first of all, let's start with, obviously, if self-employed or you've got rental income of self-employed or rental income over £1,000, then you have to do a tax return. One of the area that a lot of people probably aren't aware of is now that if you earn over £150,000 employment income, so your PAYE and it's tax deducted every month, you'd think, well, I won't need to do a tax return, but that's not the case. HMRC require you to do a tax return. So that's if it's gross income of 150,000 or more. But a lot of people probably aren't aware of that, and it's not something that HMRC tell you either. So self-assessment, I guess, is what they're saying. So you should know, and it's quite common where people suddenly get a late filing notice saying you should have a tax return. But hang on, I didn't know I was employed, but unfortunately that's what it is. So so they're the main areas really. And when I say self-employed income as well of over £1,000, that also means if, for example, you've got a main job and whatever you're doing a bit of maybe you say side hustle or whatever, and you're selling on eBay or something, if you've done over £1,000, then you have to do a tax return and declare that as well. And there's also a campaign for that's coming in from the new tax year, where eBay, for example, going to disclose to HMRC all the people selling on the platform. So it will be something that they're going to know now. So it's best to get ahead of the game and register for self-assessment and get the tax return done.
Yeah, I think that's a common theme, isn't it? A lot of what we've talked about, it's, there quite likely is going to be a tax implication. I think they always say there's two things that are certain in life: death and taxes.
Yeah.
And hopefully, they go in one order than the other. But when you're considering, that there is pretty much a tax liability on most things, I think an approach generally is best to take is, if you're unsure, just reach out to your accountant or reach out to someone like Darren and have that conversation, versus I don't think there is a liability, not worrying about it, not pricing it in, and then suddenly 18 months later you get a knock on the door or a letter through the post saying, actually, you've got a liability and we need the money now. And actually the fact you didn't disclose it is in itself a huge issue. Sometimes we don't want to think about tax and be maybe ignorant to it, but actually that's just not how it works. You've got to be aware of it and at least try to make sure you've satisfied yourself that there's no liability, or there is a liability, just dealing with it. And a lot of times it's not scary, is it, or something to worry about. It's just making sure that you're not walking into a big liability. And actually, if you understand the liability and you get advice from someone like you, Darren, it could actually be there are ways to mitigate that liability. As opposed to just trying to avoid it, actually there may be perfectly normal ways to maybe not avoid, but to plan your taxes, so you organize yourself better.
It's one of the it's better to hit it head on, really, rather than sit there worrying about it and not doing anything, and then it will come to a head at some point. Just as you say, speak to an accountant, to me, and we'll be able to guide the individual through it, and obviously do as much or as little work as they require us to do, really. So, and then and obviously try and hopefully make sure they're paying the right amount of tax. What we're here to do.
And when it comes to, I guess, kind of, I don't know how to phrase this, maybe kind of frequent mistakes you see either clients making, or frequent requests that come your way in terms of, actually, this has happened, I've realized I've now got a tax liability. I know we talked previously around rental income on a property you may have not thought is taxable, but actually is. I mean, is that mainly the main one that comes across your desk, or are there other implications where a liability can be, that can be coming their
Yeah,
way?
the rental one's quite a common one. Then there are other people, it may be that you've got someone that hasn't really, they could be like employed, but they're doing something self-employed, but like part-time, but they didn't really. It's minimal, I guess, but it's still it's more than 1,000. Where it's just not really part of their thinking because it's not their main thing, if that makes sense. Is the ones you get. Quite often, capital gains tax. There's always some quite interesting scenarios of properties where you've sold a property and you didn't realise you had a capital gains tax liability. I had one that was quite unusual. Mother swapped a property with her daughter, so she moved into her daughter's. The daughter moved into the mother's because the property was bigger, whatever. And the daughter needed a bigger place, and then she went to sell a property 10 years later. Didn't think anything of it. Sold it. Got a letter from HMRC saying you own capital gains, and it's true because it wasn't her main residence for the 10 years, even though there was no rent. It was her daughter living there, and there was. It was one of those. I get why she didn't real. Why would she ever think she, helping her daughter out? But so yeah, examples like that. Really, there's always things that crop up, and yeah. So generally speaking, if you're earning other income or some sort of form of income that isn't being taxed, then the likelihood is it should be taxed. At that point, I think it's always best to pick up the phone, try and get a call to an accountant, and they'll be able to tell you the exact position, exactly what needs to happen, basically.
Yeah, and I think one thing often I come across with clients in London, especially who, an international client base, there are countries in the world or jurisdictions in the world where there is very low tax or minimal tax, or maybe not a tax implication, that they're used to. But it's just that realization, especially if you're from overseas, or of areas which are overseas, depending which way around that is. What was maybe the case in your home country, or what the case is in other countries, that's all very well. But you're in the United Kingdom and if you're a resident for tax purposes in the United Kingdom, it doesn't matter about the rest of the stuff in the world. You need to worry about your tax liability here, and actually stuff that maybe wasn't taxable in your home country and you've moved to the UK, actually suddenly it is taxable here. And again, it's that just not being ignorant to that. It's just, or trying to avoid it. It's actually just taking that proactive approach of going, okay, this is my situation. Is there a liability? And I know in a previous video, we've talked about, double taxation treaties that exist. And actually a lot of the time it can be, there actually is no liability, but, there could be. And just by taking that proactive approach, you can very quickly establish that you're on the right side of things, and, you're not causing yourself any problems for later on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
One thing that I do see sometimes online, and I've had a few clients to me say it over the years, is they've kind of gone online, or they've been approached by a company that will say, we'll do all your taxes every year for £99 or 199 or something like that, for like a limited company or even someone's personal taxes. I guess just what's your thoughts? Because I know when, from a mortgage broking point of view, I'm always very conscious of, the service we can deliver for our clients and the advantage to that and the benefits of that. What would you be thinking if someone was saying, oh, there's an option over here to pay £99 for my taxes? Why, surely that covers everything, doesn't it? That's probably not the case though, is it?
No, I suspect there's a lot of companies out there that would just process, potential, assume correctly, but process the numbers and say this is what it is, without giving any sorts of tax planning thoughts or or any advice throughout the year. So we, as accountants, every scenario is different with every client. Some clients don't need one, but we will often sit down with our clients, talk through the tax planning opportunities, especially ahead of anything anything you do has to be done before the end of the tax year or the end of the company and financial year, because of, even if it's like a pension contribution, has to be made before the end of the year to get the tax relief. So we sit down and look at how things are going and what they can do and where they're at, basically. And yeah, so I mean, anybody that's charging, let's say, £99 for a set of limited company accounts, it's probably not giving. There's no tax advice there. I'd say it's just sort of processing the numbers, filing a company's house, and that's that, really. Whereas I sort of try to give, or we as a firm try to give more sort of proactive advice, and looking where each client's at and what their long-term plans are and where they want to get to, etc. In all aspects of their life, really. And working
Yes.
with various professionals like yourselves, like financial advisors, that type of thing, and making sure that everybody's working for that client in the direction they want to get to, basically.
Yeah, it's that financial kind of planning support, isn't it? It's there may be some platform which charges you £99, but they are literally going to just ask you to send in certain documents and they're going to process it for you, and then they're not going to help you. It's just a process, whereas you're going to actually sit down with a client, work out what's right for them, what's wrong for them. Is there anything you can be proactive about? Previously we talked about, maybe not realizing something needs to be declared. I mean, it could be a good example. If you're just filling in forms, sending it off, you may think, oh, I don't need to declare that. Actually, maybe you do. And actually a conversation with you would develop and bring that to the front. Whereas, a £99 option online or something like that, it's just not going to give you that kind of support, is it?
Yeah, no, definitely not. I don't. Also, I guess a lot of there may not be a face behind the the name or whatever. We're very face-to-face meetings, Zoom meetings, phone calls, and also we're always available like throughout the year. So our policy with fees is we don't charge for like ad hoc advice throughout the year. It's part of the fee that we agree with the client up front. I'm more than happy to have a meeting with them and stuff. So yeah, there's like we're there basically.
Yeah, I mean,
on hand to as much as possible anyway. But yeah.
Yeah, you get what you pay for. And I think that's what clients want, isn't it? They want that support and advice. I mean, I think if you're trying to do something as complex as your taxes, um, sat there sending off an email once a year and hoping that some computer or someone who's going to look at it very briefly is going to get exactly what you're trying to do. Bear in mind, you're the one with the liability of tax coming back at you. You want a professional supporting you, not some sort of option which is just not going to review things thoroughly. It wouldn't be a good way to do your taxes, really, is it?
Yeah, definitely.
And I think if you're thinking of just more broadly with HMRC, and I know when we're dealing with lenders, quite often a client will say to me, oh, can't we just say this to the lender, or can't we just do this? Or actually, I'm going to do this. And quite often part of my job is saying, well, yeah, but remember the lender isn't looking at it through your eyes; they're looking at it through their eyes, from either a risk point of view or a profit point of view. And what you're trying to do may be fine, but the lender is going to look at that very differently, and actually may prevent you from doing what you're trying to do. I guess from your side as well, that you probably have a lot more experience and a relationship with HMRC and know how they work, what they do, what they don't do, versus someone who's trying to who's sat there on the phone for, well, I say 20 minutes, it could be an hour holding, getting through to them and trying to then work out it all themselves, isn't it?
Yeah, so one of the advantages of having an accountant is that we then have authority of HMRC to deal with HMRC on their behalf. And it may only be that they've got there's an issue with something to do with HMRC that we've got to speak to them about, but it's very time consuming, so we can deal with that. Secondly, as you right, like a relationship with HMRC, we've been trading for 40 plus years, I think, something like that. So we've got X amount, 2,000 clients or whatever, and we've got that relationship, that trading issue. Like the HMRC Manston co-chartered accountants, they know it's come from us, so there's some sort of credence with that. So yeah, and also it just takes, no one wants to deal with HMRC, so it takes that away from the client, because the client, let's say the client's got a business. Why would they want? They could be doing their job, earning X amount of money in that day, rather than, or they could have spent the whole day trying to sort out what could be a trivial issue, but by the time they get through and get the wrong answer or whatever, they have to call again and stuff. So, so generally the benefits of us dealing with HMRC directly compared to the client, it's massive, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you say, like we know really what all the different taxes and everything, and we can just deal with them direct. So
Yeah, and I guess all the taxes interlink as well, don't they? So it isn't just worrying about one, it's does that trigger another liability somewhere else? And like you say, you've got that relationship with them, so, and you know what HMRC is looking for, what they're not looking for, and also can help your clients with that. And it's I imagine it's a huge weight off their shoulders, because I mean, I don't think I'd want to be in a position where I'm having to call up HMRC, think about everything, and and then get through it. I haven't got the time, and I think most people nowadays don't have the time. And certainly, it's not just the time of dealing with HMRC; it's also all the time applied of trying to figure it all out. And actually, if you've got a professional who does this every day of the week, knows exactly what they're doing, that knowledge is invaluable, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Darren. Well, thank you very much for answering those questions. Really appreciate your time as always.
No problem.
Thanks for your time today.
No worries. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. And if you have any questions, please ask below and hit subscribe below so you don't miss out on our next episode.